Guess who's back? Back again. Red is back. Tell a friend. Yes, I'm back from my 4 whole days, sort of off. I went down to Vermont for a friend's dad's birthday. We do it every year, but my husband and I took a couple extra days to write on some stuff, work on some lady bit stuff. Didn't get as much writing done as I'd hoped. Always the story, but I got some done, and the change of headspace can help a lot. But I am back, so I am doing a video today, Wednesday, which is normally the feedback session day. I am doing that as well. This is pre-taped through the magic of the internet. I can be 2 places at once. But upon my return, as we were driving back through Quebec, as we say in Canada, Quebec, this stuff hits the fan about social justice. And it was, first of all, some Doctor Who stuff, which I'm not going to belabor. I think that's a tempest in a teapot that a lot of people are making far too much of. But that tied into some stuff I saw involving the ongoing, I'll just come right out and say it, harassment of Laci Green, involving Chris Ray Gun and their relationship and the social justice types not liking it and so on and so forth, and thinking that they have a right to their opinion regarding who she dates. And, you know, the core lack of understanding in this whole thing seems to be that any performer, doesn't matter who they are, has a persona that they enact for YouTube, and that is not the whole of a person. Me, I'm kind of dumb in that you get fairly close to my day-to-day. Fewer cats, less swears, probably fewer video games than I play. I know, right? But this is essentially me. Other people don't do it that way. Other people take on personas. And Chris Ray Gun, by his own definition, does a lot of parody. He parodies social justice warriors, or as I say, outrage warriors. And so you can imagine that the outrage warriors, and I don't know why anybody would self-identify as a social justice warrior. It's a pejorative. I mean, I guess I can see to an extent. I mean, I used to joke that I was a social justice druid, true neutral in all things. But, you know, I joke that gingers eat souls, and I kind of don't want to, but it's one of those things where it's not going away, so I just embrace it. So maybe that's it. But, like, social justice warrior is not a compliment. You know, I don't use it because I don't like giving social justice to those people. The same reason I don't drop the self-identifier of feminist is the same reason I won't call these people social justice warriors. I will not give these people feminism. I will not give them the rights to be the voice of the advancement of women because I think they're wrong. And similarly, I will not give them equality and justice and dignity and all that stuff because I think they're wrong. And not just the way they go about it, but some of their ideas. Now, that doesn't mean I hate them. And this was what I found very interesting about this whole social justice warriors versus Chris Ray Gun and Laci Green. Because the argument that these outrage warriors, and I had the benefit of talking to a couple of them yesterday. It was exhausting, but it was very informative. And strangely, like, exhaustingness and informativeness tend to come together. Hello, universities, okay? But it was very interesting because there's sort of a circular logic in this bombardment that Laci Green especially, but Laci Green and Chris Ray Gun are being are being subjected to, is basically the social justice warrior, the outrage warriors, as I say, think that Chris Ray Gun is a transphobe. When I ask for proof, well, he says things that perpetuate transphobic myth. Proof. He made some comment about one particular person misleading straight men with sex. This is where the conversation went. This is not hypothetical. This is what they actually said. I was like, all right, well, one way you can go, transphobia! Because yes, it is a myth that it is an ugly misperception that transgender people are misleading people by adopting the gender that they feel that they are in their hearts, as opposed to the gender they were assigned at birth. That's not true. I believe that's not true. The thing that Chris Ray Gun was talking about was a slightly more, I won't say nuanced, because he was being a blunt force instrument at the time. And I think a lot of what his content is trying to do is just basically be less afraid of words. And so the outrage warrior logic continues that because Laci Green is dating Chris Ray Gun, then her pro-trans credentials are called into question. And I said, why? You know, it's a pernicious sexist myth. Sorry about that word, guys. It's the best one I can use right now. But it's a nasty, won't die, pimple on the butt. There, better. Sounds more like me. Sexist myth that women somehow ascribe completely to the opinions of their significant other, or worse, control or manipulate their significant other to thinking the same way they do. That's not what I'm saying, says the outrage warrior. Okay, what are you saying? Laci Green has said things that are transphobic. Such as. And they point me to this article, this tweet from Laci Green, where she is kind of laughing at this Teen Vogue article that instead of saying, you know, men and trans women and women and trans men, it's prostate owners and non-prostate owners in an article about anal sex. And from what I got, Laci was sort of mocking the fact that they didn't just say women and they didn't just say men. They went for sort of, and this was transphobic. And I'm like, whoa, where do you get transphobic from an objection to linguistic political correctness? 8 tweets later, explaining it, it was basically, well, this is this, and it's a dog whistle, and it's implication that is obvious. And I said, whoa, 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 implications are by their very nature not obvious. They are implied. Implicit, explicit. Explicit, obvious. Implicit, not so obvious. You know, there's a code and assumptions and all that good stuff. No, they just... I'm trying not to go into weeds of this whole conversation. It went on for hours, and it took so many details because the goalpost moved so often. It was like, I actually said at one point, I'm starting to see the problem here. But this is interesting because the disconnect is a profound lack of empathy on both sides. I find it a little tiring sometimes that I have to constantly watch my speech regarding bearers of genitals, and so on. That doesn't mean I don't try. It just means that sometimes I mess up. And I talk to people and they use the term SAMAB or KMAB and KFAB, which means CAFAB, coercively assigned female at birth, or CAMAB, coercively assigned male at birth. Now, this is the terms that some transgender activists prefer to use instead of male and female. Okay, that's up to them. I am not offended by them using those words. I know what they mean. My style is not that. So I am not going to be adopting those words in everyday speech. But there is a big difference between using a different term for something or having a different philosophical perspective on something than actually fearing and or hating a given group. And when you assign phobic to a person, that is what phobia. Arachnophobia means fear of spiders, right? You know, there's all these other phobias, which basically mean fears. And you got to be really, really careful when you slap a label on someone, because that makes the conversation instantly hostile. Because then people go, what? You're calling me something. It is a personal attack. You are saying what a person is, as opposed to examining the validity and the accuracy of the statement. And so I don't see anything wrong with Teen Vogue doing what they did. I don't see anything wrong with someone going, huh? At what they did. This is the discussion that we need to be having to figure out the linguistic challenges that come with an increase in trans rights. And we have to get there together, which means we have to have difficult, somewhat uncomfortable decisions without it instantly devolving into people calling each other bigots. And here's the other side of this whole gender is not genitals issue that some people may not be aware of, and obviously certain trans advocates are not aware of it. They claim, these outrage warriors going after Laci Green claim that she is misrepresenting, that the Vagina Monologues has been canceled in some places to be more trans friendly. Well, I did a Google search on this and I found some articles that actually said that, yeah, they're retiring the Vagina Monologues on various campuses to be more trans inclusive. I didn't see these articles being refuted. So I can't yet say for certain that these things are a myth. They were reported. If they are wrong, that is on the fault of the reporter, not Laci Green or anybody else for commenting on the article. But the entire purpose of the Vagina Monologues 10 years ago or whatever it got started, which I know it ain't for so long now. Oh my God, 10 years old. Like what? Seriously? Can't even. Like that is literally a decade. What? Like, oh my God, that is so old. How can I possibly understand something that's like 10 whole years old? That's like, you know, more than half my life. And I'm like 19, which is like forever. I mean, that's what it sounds like. The purpose of the Vagina Monologues back in the day was to actually be comfortable saying the word vagina in public. Believe it or not, back in the dark parts of history, this was the thing. Come on, camera, focus. There we go. This was a thing. This was a thing that women needed help doing. There'd be all these euphemisms, you know. And there was a movement 10, 15 years ago to start using the proper anatomical words for things. And there are a lot of different cultures, including very religious cultures. And I know, Laci has spoken in her videos about being from one of them. She comes from a Mormon background. And certain cultures make the women in them feel very ashamed and very dirty about their bodies. And so for people from those cultures, something like the Vagina Monologues can be very freeing. It can be very positive. It can be very body positive. And so for notably, a lot of women, but some men as well, in certain circumstances that I've seen, they need help speaking without shame and looking without shame about their own bodies. And so somebody who's come from that, who has gone through a long and painful process to be comfortable referring to their vagina and kind of accepting that I am a woman. I have this part. This part does not make me less. This part does not make me dirty. This is not a part that needs a whole bunch done to it or I have to constantly apologize for. Now, this is unfortunately an issue that some women still struggle with, I won't go into the somewhat vulgar things that people say in gaming, but you'll probably have heard grow a pair or suck my dick or, all that stuff. I guess the closest you can say is eat me for women, but that's a kind of a different thing. Like there's less publicity of the vag. The classic examples for me is it used to drive me crazy. I like Oprah Winfrey, but it used to drive me crazy that she couldn't say vagina, that it had to be vajayjay, and it was this infantilizing. But I got why. I'd be somewhere and I'd say something and you start talking about periods or start talking about vaginas, anything like that, and the guys in the room would go, oh, I don't want to hear about that. And they'd just been 5 minutes ago going, oh, suck me, this posturing and all that stuff. And then the minute anything about lady parts would come up, it's like, oh, and it's like, grow up, man. But I can say that because I didn't come from a very religious upbringing, right? I like the level of religion I have in my life. It's rational, but it's helpful at the same time. Someone who has a more sort of coercive religious upbringing isn't empowered to say, no, I am going to say vagina, and there is no reason for you to get freaked out about it. Because guess what? Women have vaginas, and now you can't say that. And so that is a big shift for somebody that had to fairly recently become more comfortable with this physical reality for the vast majority of women. And so you have this clash of cultures between early to mid third wave body consciousness exercises that feminists encouraged, and this cis feminism encouraged, and this trans feminism that's all about body parts don't define me, not all women have vaginas, all that stuff. The difficulty here is that later statement, that not all women have vaginas, although it is true. I know people who are women, but they were assigned male at birth and they haven't had the surgery yet. But they are women. In my mind, they are women. I have no issue. But that is a tiny percentage of the population. So it is fair to say that a woman has a vagina, but not all women do. That the predominant state of affairs is that most women you will encounter have a vagina. And so we shouldn't be overly politicizing that statement of fact. because we haven't settled on our agreed upon terminologies yet, and everybody just needs to calm down. And I can't speak for Laci. I don't know this is precisely what she was thinking. She might have just found the whole thing silly and just ridiculously politically correct. But this is a possible, totally harmless, non-hateful explanation for why she put that tweet up. And holy crap, it's one tweet. I'm sure, I mean, people have. They went through my Twitter and decided I was transphobic because of a joke I told them about my dog. And, you know, they completely removed the context where I was talking to the feline frequency account. And so we were speaking in parody. Because those of you who don't know, the feline frequency account is a parody of feminist frequency, only with a cat, like Grumpy Cat. And so it advocates felinism to overcome the puppyarchy. And so I said, my dog eats the cat's food, uses the scratching post. You know, can he join felinism? And feminist frequency says, all cats are cats. And I'm like, that's the answer I was looking for. Well, that was apparently transphobic because I was comparing the plight of transgender people to animals. And if you know anything about me and my relationship with my pets, there's no way I would think for a second that that would offend anybody. Like, I like my pets better than most people. So, you know, that is, your implication is, no, my implication wasn't that. Language is an inexact art. Words don't mean the same things to different people. And I think that's really all this Outrage Warrior versus Laci Green thing is the different words mean different things to the various people involved. And yet, these outrage warriors, and this is why they're outrage warriors and not just people with an opinion, have bombarded, have dogpiled, have brigaded Laci Green and Chris Ray Gun with these fanatic, I mean, and I'm talking to somebody and other people are jumping in and people are trying to convince me that Laci Green is transphobic or has transphobic thoughts and all that stuff. And the more they try to push, the more they throw posts about prostates and some Huffington Post writer that I don't know, the more they try to convince me, the less I become convinced that anything Laci Green is doing is actually a problem in real terms, in terms of advancing the dignity and rights of transgender people. Being wrong is not hateful, not necessarily hateful. But they get really angry and start getting really personal when you go, I'm not convinced. And they start giving you, I kept saying thought crimes, like what she's basically guilty of is thought crimes. Well, what does thought crimes mean to you? And I said, well, when you're going after her for what you think she thinks and not her actual actions, that is a thought crime. No, thought crime is from Orwell and it is making a thought illegal. And I'm like, why did you ask me what it meant to me if you were going to tell me? Well, I disagree with your definition. It's like, that's not what you asked. You asked what it meant to me. This is the mark of an outrage warrior. And then they accused me of an ad hominem attack when I said, you really need to be right, don't you? Like, controlling this conversation is really important to you. That was an ad hominem attack, according to them. And you really need to be right is not saying anything about it is not you're racist, it is not you're this, it is not you're that. It's like, this is really important to you, isn't it? Like, they move the goalposts on the definition of an ad hominem attack. I wasn't saying you're an asshole, you're this, you're that. It's like, you need to be right here, which I think is an observation of their behavior, not anything about their character as a person. There could be very good reasons they need to be right. But it is impossible to have a productive dialogue where you can come to some sort of understanding. They did back off, kind of, on calling Chris Ray Gun a transphobe. I said, yeah, well, he spreads transphobic messages. I said, yeah, but if he's not a transphobe, then what does it matter if Laci Green is dating him? Like, just they missed that, oh yeah, you know, the guy's entitled to his opinion. I don't have to agree with it. But if he's not actually a scumbag, There's no point to get bent about this. And if they think that Chris and Laci are really off base on certain issues, by all means, make a video or write an article and present your case the way I just did here about the whole prostate owner thing and the other side of this. That, you know, you've got this whole generation of women who finally got comfortable going, I'm a woman and I have a vagina and that's not a bad thing. Oh, you're not allowed to say you're a woman so you have a vagina anymore. Bah! All that work torn down. You may still feel very strongly about your philosophical opposition to biological sex. However, try to sympathize with the frustration. And the, oh my God, I just got this down. Now you want me to change it all again? Ah! And that's all this is, possibly. And yet they are going to war, and they have been warring since VidCon. And I don't get that, because this is not reducing sexual violence against one person. This is not getting one person a job. This is not getting one person housing. This is a giant internet slap fight on whether Laci Green is some thought traitor and Chris Ray Gun's a bigot. In the grand scheme of things, who cares? They're not a public official. They can't make laws. Let it go. Because if you don't recognize that you should focus on their ideas and not the people advocating those ideas. And you guys know me. You guys know I believe this is true of anybody. I don't get into whether Anita Sarkeesian really plays games or whether she's really a con artist or anything like that. I don't get into any of that because it doesn't matter. I don't want to personalize this. I focus on the ideas. Because I give, the people who aren't very nice to me the benefit of the doubt. They may be absolutely lovely people. They just don't like me. Fine. That happens, right? I don't have to stoop to their level. I don't have to attack them as a person. Because I actually think these issues are too important to do that. I think that we actually do have to figure out some of this stuff, because even though it's a fairly small minority of the population that has to deal with these, I don't know what you call it, basically, transgender issues, they're still people. And it doesn't matter how small the minority is. If it's not that small that it doesn't affect thousands and thousands and thousands of people. We need to deal with this. Now, I'm a bit sensitive to that because, hello, Ginger, we're a pretty small minority. Natural. But this is something we're going to have to come to terms with. And I think we just have to make transitioning seem less of an upheaval, and then things will calm down. People will not be as sensitive about pronouns and things like that for the most part if you make their journey to become a more authentic version of themselves less miserable. That's what I believe. So if we actually get the rights down, then we can start working on these terminologies and figure out, what pronouns are we going to stick with. It's probably going to be they. Hate to break it to you, bespoke pronoun crowd, but they is easiest for people. Because it's not a new word. You have to introduce it. It feels grammatically incorrect after a while, because then it becomes, third person singular. We don't have an on like we do in French. But we will get used to it. Language evolves. I think that's what it's going to end up being, and that's fine. That explains it. There is no... bespoke pronouns are not essential. But even before that, if you really believe in dignity and humanity, you don't attack people because they're further up. They're not as far up Mount Morality as you are. If you think you're this big guiding light of morality and social justice, then it's your responsibility to be patient with everybody else and bring them along with you. Make them better. And you can't do that if you're insulting them and carrying on like a bully. And the things I have seen targeted at Laci Green have been bullying. And they go, no, I don't agree. It's like, well, I don't agree what she said was outright transphobic either. Wow. It's like, okay, why do you get to have a subjective opinion that holds and then I get, like, this is about control. This is about power. And this is about, at the end of the day, who has the authority to negate somebody else's opinion when there are no facts to settle the dispute. That I have an issue with. Because I actually want to see movement on these issues. I actually want to see things get better. So that's my thought about this whole thing. Hopefully you enjoyed. I need another vacation now because I am so worn out. But onward. Bye.